Here's the story.
Indulge me, if you will, to start at the beginning. It seems to me to be a winning strategy for people who seek the truth.
You know, when I started the project, I was despairing myself, and I think that the general sense that I had about the world was that people were despairing and that people were afraid.
To understand where we need to be, well, we need to see with great clarity that our present state is simply history's fruit.
You know, either there's people shouting to try to keep people apart, or there's people shouting saying, you know, we need to come together. But I don't know, I think people are really tuned out. I think the world, I think culture is so loud that people are tuned out from the shouting. And you know, my sense about where we are is it's sort of like all hands on deck at this point.
DFR started in our living room in the middle of the night. Conversations that were happening at 2 in the morning about feeling frustrated with the sense that there's really no way to break through this barrier of feeling silenced in our democracy right now.
I know it's downright scary and overwhelming when you get to digging and you start to delving and you're going down roads you'd just as soon not take.
More and more I see the money and the power concentrated into a smaller and smaller group of people who don't really care about the concerns, it seems, of a lot of people who are really losing out right now.
The Scott Walker incident in Wisconsin, where people stormed the courthouse to protest against the shutting down of collective bargaining rights.
The opening salvo in what we would come to think of as the Occupy movement.
It was sort of the moment where I said, well, what the hell are you doing about it? You know, you're frustrated, you're angry, you're scared for your kids, you're scared for the future, the environment is crumbling around us. What are you gonna do?
But come, my friends, it's not so bad, and not to go, and it's kinda sad, cause the truth will set us free. Craftsman, Sorby, Saltarm, the Erie, Franklin, Motor, Chairs by Stickley, Crouse-Heinz, Ally, GM, NGE.
I never would have even known of political theater. I didn't even know that such a thing existed or a genre existed of theater. For me, it has begun to feed and assuage that need to do something, but in a way that has made me feel that I'm tapping into my natural abilities.
She said, you know, there's this political theater group, and I think you'd be a good part of it. And at first I was like, I didn't think so because I'm not real political. But then once I came, and I saw what was going on and got to listen, it was kind of refreshing to hear different political views and what people want to do for the community and things of that nature. I said, let me just jump in.
Here I am in an opportunity to express myself politically, theatrically, and musically. It all comes together.
It's an answer against kind of perpetuating a state of negativity and moving to the state of positivity and celebration.
I could retreat or I could act. And my training in theater and my passion for politics led me to act.
Move a little to the left, move a little to the right, moving a little closer, gonna be alright. Just remember that while the journey takes courage and a stomach for honesty, the reward is sweet, you'll see. We stand as one, we'll overcome. A new day's born, a rising sun. Move on like you mean it, but the story isn't done. The lesson lesson that we once were told. Together we're worth more than gold. We can't be bought and it won't be sold. We're strong and proud and undefeatable. Stronger when we stand as equals. This is our leg of history's run. Here with the people of the Longhouse song. From these lands of wisdom, from the many we are. Come on, talk about it. Come on, shout about it. Have no doubt about it. Don't dream a dream about it. Laugh and sing about it. Live your life. From many we are one.
What if we could inspire people from all your poster making and your rallying that once a month, let's say, maybe that's ambitious, I'm just going to say it though. Once a month, we came back to this space for a party, and then we stayed after the party and we got down to business. And we invited more and more people from around the city and around the region to join us in a real series of conversations so that we're not just working in our separate orbits, but we're trying to organize. Right. Let's organize.
I'm Kevin Bott, and I am the founding artistic director of the Dream Freedom Revival, and I also play the character of the Dr. Reverend Ebenezer Abernathy. The whole thing started in a pretty desolate winter. By, I'd say, March of 2011, I was coming out of my funk, thinking about this project, developing the concept internally, starting to share it with a couple of close people. So on Memorial Day weekend, we threw a backyard barbecue, and we only invited about 4 people because we didn't know that many people. But then through those 4 people, we knew other people got invited, and we wound up having about 30 people in our backyard, most of whom we didn't know. And anyway, I gave the pitch. From that group, only one person ever wound up joining the troupe. But there was a woman there who came up to me right afterwards and said, I founded a community center on the west side of the city. We're having our grand opening in October. Will the DFR perform? And I looked at her and I said, well, at this moment, I am the DFR. There is no DFR. So, but I said, I'm going to let this be a light under my butt to pull it together. So I'm going to say yes. And we had 2 community meetings, and about 25 people came to each one. And from that, we got about 15 people in a choir, and we got like a 5-person band together. And we started rehearsing on Labor Day of 2011. And in those 5 weeks between then and the first performance, we created a whole show, and we created 3 original songs that we all learned and sang together. And we performed this thing at this grand opening.
I am the Dr. Reverend Ebenezer Abernathy. This is the sound of freedom, and together with you, we are the mellifluously melodious and medicative freedom revival of Greater Central New York. Now, a little to the left, move a little to the right, move in a little closer, it'll be all right. Just remember that, though the journey takes courage and a stomach. People starting to realize that we need a democratic revival, a renewal of the democratic experiment. Do you feel what I'm saying? Yeah. People feeling that we need to reaffirm the right to life, liberty, and happiness, to say that all are created equal. But I want to just stop for 1 minute, if you let me.
And then from that performance, for 2 years, we had 2 seasons, and we performed about almost 24 times. It was a really hectic, full schedule where we just felt like, let's perform everywhere, let's do anything we can do so people get to know us. At the end of the first season, it's after we had worked so hard in this first year, and we had written, 4 or 5 songs, and we had been together as a troupe. I just felt like we nailed it, and that continued. We were able to partner with local groups. We were ending each of our revivals with a shared meal where people could either formally, sometimes, or informally, other times, talk in more depth about the issues that were raised in the revival.
The testimonials where people were coming up from the audience to testify were really charged. They were really spontaneous. They were moving to people.
I've just been revitalized recently on my role in community and how
we were having an impact. Like, there were things happening in the community where people looked forward to these monthly revivals.
And we were having fun, but there were also some really serious issues being talked about. And, you know, we were singing and dancing and doing this fun thing, but it was heavy. These were things we were talking about that were affecting people in our community. We were seeing it. And it was strenuous. It required a lot of heavy lifting.
Because I refuse to believe and accept the premise that history is something that happens in the past. I refuse to believe that history has something to do with the great men, usually white, the great white men who have made everything possible for us.
And democracy is about building on trust. And capitalism, the kind of zombie capitalism we have today, is about leveraging fear.
And we fail to remember the ghosts of our past. You know, Americans don't want to think about the past. They want to think, how do we move forward? No one's really thinking about where we came from, you know. This whole, you know, privatizing movement, this neoliberal, globalized economy is forcing us all into these smaller and smaller bubbles. And I thought, you know what? We have to sing against that. We have to come together against that fear, you know. I was scared of making a fool of myself. I was scared that what I was feeling wasn't going to resonate with anybody else here. I was more concerned about building a bunker for protection than building a bridge for connection. You know what I'm saying? We can act. We can change the world. We can make the world that we want to see. Do you believe that? Do you believe what I'm saying?
The name, the Dream Freedom Revival, that, you know, Ebenezer would talk about the fact that we need a revival of freedom. We need a revival of democracy, and that our instinct is to name a plan, to take action, to do something or to think something, and we miss what I would always say is the first step of that process, which is to dream. And that while we can all have our individual dreams, that democracy is about a collective dream. That's what DFR was. DFR was a space to dream together. And so that's what the whole thing was. Maybe I lost that over the years. For myself, I forgot to say that. But that's what it was meant to be.
It was 4 years of, you know, putting in a lot of work, and the work was about confronting these very serious issues, and we were doing it with a large group of adults who were all dealing with lives, work, family, kids, and it took a toll. You know, it got to a point where I was ready to walk away from it.
Have you ever stopped to wonder from whence comes freedom's call? The sound that rips asunder the chains that bind us all. Where's that cry? Who sings for liberty? Is freedom's body yours to hold? Or is it just a dream? Have we lost the will to wonder? Have we lost the song we sing? 'Tis for thee, sweet land of liberty, that we call freedom to ring. Listen to our tale, listen to our story. It's the yarn that we all tell ourselves to revive old freedom's glory. Dream freedom revival, dream liberty.
Una tierra sin fronteras.
Dream freedom revival, dream liberty.
Los pasos de mis padres.
This invitation extends to thee. We walk these roads o'er the centuries we trod, singing songs of freedom. Cantando libertad.
It was an incredibly difficult decision to make. It was a heartbreaking decision, actually. It meant so much to me, and it meant a lot to all of us. And a revival of democracy, a freedom revival, is as necessary, maybe more necessary in 2016 than it was in 2011 or 12. And it's likely to be necessary in 2020 and 2030. But I didn't intend for this to never end. It was my hope, and it is my hope, that we touch some lives during our run, that, you know, that some people experience, maybe just for a moment, a personal revival, and that from that, action is inspired. But yeah, in terms of the revival we staged, yeah, that was over.
I struggle with what's right in that artistic sensibility of wanting it to be my way. You know, that's my challenge. And I think it's a leadership challenge of that I struggled with in this project the whole time. And I think I had instincts that were at war, that on one hand, I wanted to see what would happen in the experiment. Like, maybe if we all really did make collective decisions, maybe that really would produce something great. You know, maybe the collective imagination can really produce something unexpected and incredible. And yet, I thought my ideas were the ones that we should go with, and that's a normal thing. You know, everyone thinks their ideas are good. And yet I would always question myself, well, who says my ideas are the best ideas? Why, maybe that is a better idea. Maybe I'm just being an egomaniac. I think the demise of DFR was my responsibility. I think that I didn't negotiate those tricky waterways very well, and I was giving up power because I thought it was the right thing to do, and ultimately it led to me not feeling good about the project. I didn't have the energy to put up the fight in the tug of war anymore, you know, and so I gave up. I dropped both sides of the rope and walked away.
Sorry, yeah, my God. In fact, the stage is gone.
Wow, I can't wait to see it.
There's major renovations going on.
Have you been a fireman all these years?
Well, let's see, since 1969.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, it has been many, many years since I've been in this firehouse. Holy mackerel. Wow, cool. What are you guys doing in here? total renovation.
Well, somebody's painting already.
But at times there was like a secondary sort of stage over here. I remember very well being a prepubescent Rolf Gruber in the Sound of Music, and opening night, this sort of very pretentious local music teacher was in attendance at the opening night performance, and I felt he was coming to listen to my voice. I think I was studying with him, and he was sitting right in the front row, and I was over here. We were doing, 16 going on 17. And I had this 14-year-old girl on my knee, and I was like 12. I was going through puberty, and I was so nervous that this guy was in the audience, and my voice cracked so bad on these falsetto notes. I felt so humiliated.
Would you like to recreate it later to kind of purge that from you?
My dad's been ill, so I'm back in town to see him. My kids have off from school this week, so we're just back visiting, and I am making the rounds of some of the old haunts. My family and I are in the midst, we're coming up on a transition, but yeah, there are changes afoot, and every time there's a change afoot, I like to reflect on the journey to figure out where I am in terms of being aligned with my path, so that I can make decisions that feel right. Crazy to think it was 30 years ago. I mean, just don't think of yourself being that old. Well, I always go back to the Barnegat Light Firehouse, which is where I really, started performing on stage. And Surflight Theater, the other end of the island, which is really where I grew up. I mean, both of those places, during the school years, I grew up, September to June, I grew up at the Firehouse. And then from June to August, I was at Surflight Theater. And that was from the time, with our gang, from the age of 10 until I left for college. And then I came back from college to direct. And Surflight really, from the time I was 13 until I left for college as well. I was kind of almost congratulating myself on not being a sentimental person, which is kind of hysterical. But as I was thinking about the Firehouse and I was thinking about Surflight, I was thinking, I think one of the reasons you get sentimental sometimes is if your life feels very disconnected from the past, and so you revisit these places, and it seems like another lifetime ago. And I think the fact that I continue to make theater, and I still feel very much that the theater I make is connected to the community here and to those spaces that were very much community spaces for me. I thought I wasn't going to get sentimental about it. And then I went, and yeah, it was a real trip. What's funny when I think about why I started Dream Freedom Revival is that I feel like it's sort of analogous to the way that when you're really close into something, you talk about all the details, but as you get farther in history, the details sort of dissolve into this larger narrative. And for a long time when I talked about why I started DFR, it was all about Obama and the Tea Party and Scott Walker, and all these things that I've talked about are incidental to this larger impulse that I was feeling. That was a response to this surprising turn of events in which I was in a very passive, middle-class suburban life that I had just never prepared myself for. And so suddenly, DFR was now very quickly another project, and it was another piece of the journey. So, going back to the Firehouse and going back to Surflight, it all connects, you know, it all really connects. And one of the things I realized going there was the way that DFR was a real intersection in my life between the part of me that had grown up thinking about and dreaming about myself as a performer, and the desire that I had for decades to fulfill my capacity as a performer, at the intersection with the part of me that had learned a new type of theater that was about social justice, that was about community building, that was about the stories of the grassroots. And so those things came together in DFR in a way that was really, at times, dynamic and energizing, and at other times a real, you know, dam in the flow of energy. And I think I found a peace in retrospect in that, you know, there is a balance to be found between the collective and the individual. And I think American democracy at its best thrives on a balance between individual excellence that's not ego-driven, that's not about look at me, but it's about really elevating one's power and one's potential as a generous human being, and the collective, and the desire for that individual energy and generosity to be in service to the common good, right? So that's what I think can happen through ensemble theater, is that you can bring everyone's individual excellence forth and come up with something that benefits the common good.
That's a mouthful. If that is too much for you to remember, you can just call us the Dream Freedom Revival. You got that? Get off. You look puzzled back there. Okay. The woman back there is a bit puzzled. You don't have to call us that either. You can just call us the DFR. But whatever you call us good. For what? 2, 3. Dream Freedom
We are exactly what you see, bruised and scraped up knees. Still we find our way. Some come as quickly as they go. Some choose their own roads. Still they find their way. And God knows how hard it is to lose. Pray to whichever one you choose, that you will find your way. Now we find our 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 way.